So if you had to put a hierarchy to it, you would start off with your objective goal first, and then go after that to your performance goal second, and then your process goal third. Is that how you would kind of prioritize them?
Doing a goal setting routine or goal setting program, yes. I wouldn't set them in that frame and hierarchy of importance because
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
yeah, they're all important. But if I were designing a goal setting,
Hierarchy of process, I guess you could say maybe.
yeah, it'd be I'd just say an order of operations.
Hmm.
Yeah, so for your order of operations,
Yeah.
like because your outcome goals guide your performance goals, which then guide your process goals. So let's take, for example, and we might be in imagination land here, but let's assume your team keeps really, really good data of goal scores. Like, I think, was it in the From the Crease magazine where Ian Clark developed the goalie power ranking,
Yes.
where basically like a QB
Uh,
power ranking.
it was it was an FTC. It was a goalie news.
Goalie news,
Goalie news.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there used to be I don't know if they still do it. I'm not sure, but there used to be a goalie power ranking where rather than just using save percentage and goals against average, they would take almost I think every shot that a goalie would see, but not just the shot location. They would factor in the situation and give
Yes.
those situations basically weighting. They give those situations weighting based on how high quality of a scoring chance it was. And then at the end, you'd have this goalie power ranking, which would basically tell you who the best goalie was. And I think year after year it was Roberto Luongo when he played for
Yeah, the
Florida.
one goal was
When he
top.
played for
Yeah.
Florida, never made the playoffs. Had a goals against average of like around 3 in the NHL, which is quite high, but was always at
High
the
save
top.
percentage. Yeah,
Yeah,
he was at a decent save percentage too for a bad team at that
yeah,
point.
and he
So
was always at the top of the power ranking. So again, just to backtrack, let's use that assumption that your team keeps really good data. So your outcome goal is um, going to be to make a certain team, or at the end, if it's within the season, we could say our outcome goal as a team is to make playoffs, and you as a goaltender play a really big role in that. So our goal is to make playoffs. So now, from that outcome goal, we have to look at what can we do to achieve that outcome goal. And for you as a goaltender, again, it sounds easy. It's not as easy as it sounds, but if you make more saves, you're increasing your own performance from your performance goals. If you can make more saves, that's going to give your team a better chance, and you as well, of achieving your next outcome goal. So if your team keeps really good data with your performance goals, you can actually set very specific performance goals. Let's say, for example, in a 7-game segment, if there's a 7-game segment, you have 20% of your goals, so 1 in 5, are on rebounds. 20% of your goals are on rebounds. So what's something we can do? We can try to get that down to 15%. If we get our goals scored down from 20% to 15% on rebounds, that's going to translate into less goals scored. That's going to translate into a higher goals against average, higher save percentage, and into a better opportunity for your team to achieve your outcome goal. Now, that's what you need to do. If I can control more first saves or get to my rebounds faster, I'm going to achieve my performance goal, then I'm going to achieve my outcome goal. Now, as you mentioned, how I achieve that performance goal, that's the work that you do on the ice. First you can identify, why am I giving up more rebounds, and why am I not able to get into position on those secondary plays? Is it because my elbows are touching my body? Is it because I'm going down early on shot release? Is it because my head's popping back and I'm not maintaining vision or not staying forward over top of pucks? From there, now we can start to assess the process goals. So the process goals that we need to work on are continual development of our save process in that sense. So yeah, in the order of operations, our outcome goals will guide our performance goals. Our performance goals will guide our process goals.
and I was going to ask you, which you already kind of answered yours. Data has a huge implication as to what your process will be, basically, right? So I know that a lot of goalies in minor hockey don't really have those types of resources. So what it would come down to, I guess, is doing a better job with understanding the game and trying to get to reflect on the game a little bit better. Maybe even keeping up a journal, like we talked about last week,
That's
right?
exactly it. Like, and even for the process goals, we talk about these outcome performance process goals as being objective. Now, the difficulty with process goals is how do you measure them? How do you measure if your elbows are off body? How do you measure if you're staying more forward on pucks than you were before? How do you measure if you're patient on feet? So this is the biggest key where reflection comes in. And we talked last week about giving yourself a performance rating on a score out of 5 every each game.
Yep.
We talked about the journal process, doing a pre-ice time journal, pre-game, pre-practice, a quick assessment of how you're feeling, and then doing an immediate post-journal, and then a post-journal maybe the next day when you can reflect back on it. Thinking about the different facets of your ice time, so the different facets of the situations you were working on, or the different facets of the save process, being very reflective in your own performance. If your team's not able to keep data for you, that's going to really be able to guide your next steps. So if you can reflect and you can feel in a game or in a practice scenario, man, I didn't control any first pucks. Pretty much every time I got scored, I made a lot of first saves. Pretty much every time I got scored on was on a secondary opportunity. Now, it might take a lot of work. It might take a lot of thoughtful work to actually think back and think, why was that happening? Because there are a number of reasons that could be the case. But if you're able to do that, now you've basically provided your own data in order to set your next process goals.
The thing too is that when it might be hard for goalies sometimes to come up with those concepts, right? Of figuring out like, okay, well, they can reflect really well, saying, okay, well, maybe it's off rebounds, but figuring out why it was happening can be hard. But a good thing though is if you do keep a journal of it, then you can bring that to your goalie coach and say, hey, these are the situations I got scored on. What do you think? And your goalie coach will be able to give you options right away, right? They'll be able to say like, well, maybe your elbows are too tight to your body. Maybe you released off the rush too late. And then as they give you those options, you can kind of think back through it and kind of and realize what it was, right? So it's one of those things that I think it starts with, like you said, start with the journal, try to figure it out for yourself. But if at least you put in the work when it comes down to your journal, if you can't figure it out yourself, bring it to your goalie coach. And then you'll probably come up with a reason as to why those goals came in.
Yeah, and even when the goalie coach is giving you your options, so when you say it could have been this, could have been this, could have been that, by keeping a detailed journal, you're imprinting the information in your head, so you can reflect and feel it right away. You're like, oh, it felt like it was this. I remember now. Whereas if you don't keep the journal and you're just like, I feel like I'm getting scored a lot on rebounds. And then you ask, okay, these are the potential reasons why that could happen. Are any of these what you're feeling? And you say, I don't know. There's really nowhere to go from there. So, yeah, again, a lot of it really comes back to being self-reflective and having really good knowledge of yourself as a goaltender and having good knowledge of yourself as a mental performer. If you have that understanding of what you're doing on ice, how you're feeling, and what you're thinking, and how that's relating to your performance, from there, it's really, really easy for professional goalie coaches and mental performance consultants to piece back together and give you ways forward.
Now, when it comes down to your goal setting, there's a lot of goalies who don't really know what their goals are. So how can you help someone figuring that out?
Again, I like to start by the subjective goals. Like why is something important to you? This is something you and I come across a lot of times when a lot of guys are going from midget to junior. There's always that big step of like, I want to play junior A, and if I end up playing junior B, it's a fail. Like, I don't want to play junior B. It's like, it's junior A or bust. So when it comes to goal setting, like the conversation that we always have is, what is important to you and why is it important? So basically with going forward with goal setting, understanding why something is important to you and why you want to achieve it is the first step. That's what's really going to guide motivation. I know, like, I think there's the famous quote is like, don't count the days, make the days count. So it's not the amount of ice times that you do. It's not the amount of workouts that you do. It's how engaged you are in those ice times, how engaged you are in those workouts in order to in order to develop your skills and to develop your fitness level to achieve what you think is your goal. So going forward, goal setting, the biggest piece is what's important to you and why is it important. And I think we've talked about this before, maybe on a stream, but it really starts to frame your identity. It's not always just what you want to achieve and why you want to achieve it, it's who you want to be. So, for example, I just mentioned the subjective goals. Use some brief examples. Like I want to be the best goalie coach I can be. I want to be the best partner I can be. I want to be fit. I want to be physically fit. Now, from those, why are those important to me? Because those really go into my definition. I'm Ben. I'm Emily's husband. I'm Ben Vandervies. I'm a goalie coach, or I'm Ben Vandervies and I'm in shape. Whatever those things are, whatever those things that I want to define myself as, those are the reasons why I'm doing things. So understanding that what you do and how you do and why you want to do it forms who you are. Now, from that identity, we start to backtrack through our objective, our performance, and our process goals. So, for example, if you want to be a hockey player, we're talking to goalies, you want to be a hockey player. What do hockey players do? They play hockey for a living. So what are the next steps for you to play hockey for a living? And that's going to depend on where you are. Especially right now, once you understand your motivations and your values, you want to start to look at what team you want to play on next year and what's realistic for you. I'll cover that as we finish this up. We'll talk about like SMARTS goals. But you want to think about what's realistic to move forward to be a hockey player. So think about what team you want to play on. That's going to be your objective goal, and that's going to start to guide all your other goals now. So you're moving from, again, we started with the subjective goals up top. You're moving from the value piece of who you want to be to, well, if I want to be a hockey player, what do hockey players do? And then from there, you're piecing down into your immediate actions. So hockey players, they make teams. They keep continually increasing their skill set so that they continually play on better and better teams. So then those turn into your objective goals. And then how do they do that? They show up attentive, they show up focused to their ice times every day, they show up attentive and focused to their gym sessions every day, and then that starts to guide almost all the way down into your daily schedule, to what you're doing today that's going to impact everything along that spectrum that you want to accomplish.
That reminds me of a discussion I had with a dad, and he seemed to be more worried about his kid not making a specific team than his kid was, and not that his kid didn't care, like he said, like his kid ended up, when he heard the news that he didn't make the team, he was pretty bummed out for the rest of the day, which is normal. But then the next day he was back to his regular self, and I was like, man, like, it's so weird. Like, does he not care? And the answer that I had for him is no. The difference is your kid wants to be the best goaltender in the world, and that goal doesn't get that doesn't just disappear because he didn't make your team. He can be the best goalie in the world by not being on that specific team. He can be the best goalie in the world on a different team, basically. And if you can figure out that top goal, like you said, who you want to be the best goalie in the world. It doesn't matter where you are physically in a location, whether you're on Team Canada or not. You can be the best goalie in the world in Junior B. Right, it's just a frame of mind.
You can be the best goalie you can be.
Yes,
right? Like
exactly.
That's really what the value is. It's who do you want to be? And I'm a goaltender, and goaltenders stop pucks, whatever level they end up playing at. But at the same time, if I want to be the best goaltender I can be, it doesn't really matter if I don't make this team, because I want to be the best goalie I can be because it makes me who I am, and I enjoy who I am. If I show up every day, I'm attentive, I'm learning, I'm feeling good about getting new skills, that outcome goal, although it's there, it has much less impact on your mood, it has much less impact on your mindset than it does if the outcome goal itself is your value. And that's
if you focus on what you can do today, to be the best goalie you can be, you're most likely going to reach your goals in the future, right? If you don't reach that goal initially, and the first thing you do is you start to pout, and that pouting kind of extends over a couple days to a week to a month to a couple months to a year, well, chance of you reaching your goal eventually are going to diminish as it goes. But if you start focusing on what you can do today and who you can be today, it'll help you in the long run.
Yeah, each time you take an action or perform an action that's going to get you closer to your outcome goal, what you're also doing is you're taking an action that starts to fill who you are. So, and that's why like we always kind of start with who do you want to be and what do you value. If you want to be the best goalie you can be, if that's if you think about achieving that identity as an empty container, each time you take an action, you're putting something in. Say you're filling a change jar, you're putting change in, so that every time you do things that the top level goalies do to become the best goalie you can be, you're filling that jar of becoming that identity. And do we ever achieve a good question could be, do we ever achieve that identity? Probably.
Well, the
Yeah.
thing is, you're at some point once you fill the jar, you just
Yeah.
grab a bigger jar,
Yeah.
right? And you start filling up that
Yeah.
one, and then
Yeah, and it's because there's always things to learn. And what we start to enjoy and you learn about what the values that you hold are is you don't actually value that outcome. You start to learn that the outcome is really something that's on the periphery. What you enjoy is becoming who you want to be, taking those actions, and just feeling more competent in your skills. You're learning every day, and every day you're learning, every day you're getting better. You're feeling like you're becoming more of who you want to be, and that's the most motivating factor.